Did you know that with Visual Studio Code, you can develop apps and scripts faster than with a simple text editor or full-blown IDE like Eclipse? My name is Russell Smith and this is Windows Business Weekly. Today I'm going to show you how to use Visual Studio Code, a free open source code editor that's available for Linux, Windows and Mac OS. I'll show you how to download and install Visual Studio Code, how to install extensions so that it works better with your scripting or programming language of choice, how to customize the user experience, and how to run and debug your code. Visual Studio Code includes everything a programmer or system administrator needs. It's fast, lightweight, open source, free, and it works on all the main desktop platforms. For example, if you're automating a common administrative task using PowerShell or another language like Python, Visual Studio Code is much easier and faster to work with than a full-blown IDE like Microsoft Visual Studio. And Visual Studio Code offers many more features than the PowerShell integrated scripting environment that comes built into Windows. Plus, Visual Studio Code supports any language that you can think of. The first step is to download Visual Studio Code. I'm going to download the version for Windows, but you can download the version for Mac OS or Linux, depending on your platform. Once the file has downloaded, you just need to run it and follow through any instructions to install Visual Studio Code on your system. Now let's start the program from the Start menu. We can create a new file from the Welcome page or by clicking the File menu and New File. In this example, I'm going to create a simple Hello World application using PowerShell, but you can use whatever programming or scripting language that you like. Let's save this file by pressing Ctrl and S. All I need to do is select a location, give the file a name, and then choose the right file type from the list. This will make sure that the file name is using the right file extension. To make it easier to work with PowerShell in Visual Studio Code, I'm going to install the PowerShell extension. To install extensions, click the Extensions icon on the activity bar. I can either install a recommended extension or use the search box to find the extension I need. Let's type PowerShell into the search box and see what extensions are available. I want to install Microsoft's PowerShell extension, so let's click Install. Now that the extension is installed, let's delete our line of code and retype it. This time, you can see how autocomplete provides suggestions about how we might write our code. Let's open a more complicated script. Here you can see how the extension formats the code to make it easier to read. If you're finding this video useful, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. And if there's anything else you'd like me to show you about Visual Studio Code, please leave me a comment below. But stay tuned because I'm going to show you later how to run and test your scripts or programs inside Visual Studio Code. Let's have a look at the rest of the Visual Studio Code interface. At the bottom of the screen, we have the status bar. In the left-hand corner, you get information about warnings and errors in your code. In the right-hand corner, you get information about the line and column numbers and the language that you are using. You can also provide feedback to Microsoft and see a list of pending notifications. On the left-hand side of the screen, you have the activity bar. The first icon lets you switch between open files and folders. The search icon lets you search for text in your open files. Moving down, the next icon lets you manage versioning using Git source control. The run icon lets you run and debug your scripts. And finally, extensions is where you find, install and remove extensions for Visual Studio Code. You can see that the PowerShell extension installed an additional icon on the activity bar that lets me explore all the available PowerShell commandlets. The third important part of the interface is the command palette, which you can open from the View menu or by clicking Ctrl, Shift and P. In the command palette, you can run commands instead of using the mouse to change Visual Studio Code settings or perform actions. For example, I can use the command palette to quickly reopen the welcome page. There are lots of customization options so that Visual Studio Code works best for you. From the welcome page, you can install key bindings, which map keyboard shortcuts to actions, so that Visual Studio Code works like your favorite code editor. For instance, you could install key bindings so that it works like Vim or Eclipse. You can also change the color theme to your own preference. Let's go back to our script and look at how we can customize the editing pane. In the View menu, I can turn on Word Wrap so the text fits the screen without scrolling left and right. You can also remove the mini-map on the right if we'd like to have more screen real estate for our code. Finally, let's look at running our code. There are a couple of ways to run code. The first is using the Run icon on the activity bar. To run the code, click Run and Debug. You can see the results in the terminal window at the bottom of the screen. Alternatively, we can select a single line of code or a block of code and press F8 to run the selection. In the terminal window, we can also change the scripting engine used to run the code. This is useful if you have different versions of PowerShell or other language installed on your PC. And that's all I have for you today. If you found the video useful, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. If there's anything else you'd like to see about Visual Studio Code, drop me a comment below.